Welcome Vegas vets, Vegas newbies, and everyone in between. This is Josh from Big Slick Vegas, and this is our second part of our Las Vegas most frequently asked questions. And on this segment, we're going to cover transportation in Las Vegas. This is oftentimes I see and hear questions: what's the quickest way to get from the airport to the Strip? The cheapest way? What's the best way to get around? Should I get a rental car or not? Now, obviously, this is only going to apply, if you're someone who's driving in from Vegas, whether it's from California, Arizona, Utah, this really won't apply to you too much. But for those of you flying into the Las Vegas at the airport, you definitely want to listen to this video. So, starting once you do get to the airport, what are some of the better ways, quickest ways and cheapest ways to get to your hotel from the Las Vegas airport? So starting with airport shuttles. Now airport shuttles you'll find right by the baggage claim there at the airport. Most of them you can go ahead and just buy a ticket right then and there, though there are some you can go on their websites and go ahead and reserve a ticket. Here's typically the fares for riding on the airport shuttles is about right around $11 a person. And they will take you anywhere on the Strip to go. I think it's a little bit more if you go downtown. Basically, is this a good value? If you're traveling alone and say going to one of the South Strip hotels, which are the closest to the airport, it might not be too bad of a deal, as that's only $11. But if it's going to be you and another person, that's going to come out to $22, and that's normally just as much than say taking a cab, and certainly more than if you take a ride share. Now if you're going to the Center Strip, North Strip for $11 for one or even two of you, then it might not be a bad deal. Just know that it's going to take a lot longer to get to your hotel, because depending on how many people are on the shuttle with you and where they're wanting to stop at, you could be stopping at several places till you get to your destination. So it could take you anywhere from 30 minutes, maybe even up to an hour before you get to your hotel. So if time's not a big deal with you, then maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe the shuttle's the way to go. But if you're wanting to get there fairly quick, you're getting to Vegas, you're at the airport, you just want to get to your hotel and get started on your vacation, then maybe a shuttle's probably more than likely not the best way to go. Very rarely have I ever used them, and it's been probably well over 10 years since the last time I used one. So another one, and probably one of the more popular ways to go, is taking a rideshare, that being a Uber or a Lyft. Now it can be a little bit, these are typically fairly cheap, combination of being fairly cheaper than a cab, quicker than a shuttle. Typically the only really downside of taking the ride shares is the convenience of them, because they're not located right outside the baggage claim like the taxis are, or even the airport shuttles are. Instead, you're going to have to go up to the second level of the parking garage. Now, there'll be signs there at the airport showing where the pickup is at. You'll want to, once you get, don't even order your ride, your Uber or Lyft, till you get to about where the drop-off and pickup's at, or the pickup location is at, because typically there's tons of Uber and Lyft drivers are kind of like circling the airport, just wait for people to order a ride, because you don't want to miss your ride if you happen to order right when you get the baggage claim, and then by the time you get there, they're already gone. So that area too, just a caution, can be, depending on the time of day, can be very congested, so there could be a lot of people there waiting for their ride shares. So it could take a little bit longer to get to your destination, but that's typically one of the more popular ways of going from the airport to the hotel. Now when you're coming back, it's not as big of a deal, because typically the drop-off or the pickup area for the Lyft and Uber is, might be at an odd place in the hotel, but it's normally fairly convenient depending on the hotel. and where they drop you off is going to be just about where the taxis are going to drop you off. So you're not going to be dropped off at the parking garage and then having to go back in. They'll just drop you off the normal drop-off area in front of the ticket counters for the whichever airline you are going to. And that brings us to taxis. Now, it used to be taxis would be one of the worst options over the recent years, just because taxi drivers have a would have a tendency in the past to do what's called long hauling you, which is they're going to take the longest route. Unless you tell them specifically which route to take, they're going to take you on the longest route and therefore charge you almost maybe even double, even triple than what it would be to take a Lyft or an Uber. But since then, they have enacted basically a fixed rate program where they just charge you one fixed rate depending on which hotel, which zone you're going to on the Strip. And I'll show that right here. You have basically 3 zones on the Las Vegas Strip. You have the Zone 1, which is pretty much the South Strip hotels, which is going to be about $19 to ride from the airport to the hotel, and vice versa, going from the hotel to the airport. $23 for basically what amounts to the South Center to Center Strip hotels. There's even a couple off-strip hotels, like the Orleans is listed on there, as well as the Grand Chateau, which is a Marriott property. So those are going to be about $23. And then you go up to Zone 3, which is pretty much Center Strip all the way up to the North Strip. Now, are these still good rates? It really kind of depends. It'll certainly be quicker because where the pickup for taxis are at the Vegas airport are right outside the baggage claim. Yeah, typically there will be a long line, but the line goes really super quick. So it is going to be a little bit quicker to get to your hotel versus an Uber or a Lyft. Now, most of the time it's probably going to still be a little bit more expensive than taking a Lyft or Uber, but sometimes maybe not by that much. Typically, say, going from the airport to Mandalay Bay on an Uber is going to probably be about, depending on the time of day, going to be about $15, whereas with a cab it'd be $19. So if you think it's worth paying the extra few bucks plus the tip to go ahead and take a cab, then that might not be a bad idea. When I'm looking at like Zone 3, which is, I'm surprised they didn't really break these up into 4 zones, because a place like Caesar's Palace is $27, or Flamingo, $27, and both those hotels are pretty much right in the center part of the Strip, yet it costs the same to go there versus going to someplace further up north like Resorts World, or even further north to Sahara or the Strat. And so if you're like staying up to the north end of the Strip, it's probably going to be about the same, maybe even a little less than, maybe about the same taking a cab than taking an Uber or a Lyft. So that might be the way to go, since they're priced like that. It's kind of weird they're priced like that. Now, if you're going downtown, then I would definitely stick with the Uber or Lyft, just because I know that rates going from the airport, taxi rates going from the airport to downtown can be a lot more expensive, maybe even twice as much as taking a ride share. So unless you're going to the Strip and you really want to get there quick, then that's when probably taking a cab is going to be your best bet. Fourth option is you can reserve yourself a limo service. Now, some of the more popular services is like Presidential Limo, seems to be about the most popular that I've seen, and it's the only one that I've used. There's a few others like Beltrans, and I can't remember some of the other ones. And the rates on those really depend on what day it is, what the time is. It's really, if it's a busy time they project. Typically you want to reserve those ahead of time online. And like I say, the prices can vary. It's certainly the most convenient and quickest way, because typically the driver is going to meet you right there at the baggage claim. You'll tell them what your flight information is ahead of time, so they know which baggage carousel to meet you at. They'll be there. They'll help you with your bags, take you straight to the car, and boom, you're off. No lines to wait to get a cab or to get a Lyft or an Uber. Of course, this is going to be also a little bit more pricier. Now, how pricey, it really varies. I'll give you an example. Like last summer, we reserved one to pick us up at the airport and take us to the Cosmopolitan. And I think that ride was about $70 for me and my wife. And that was on a Sunday morning on the 4th of July. Now, by contrast, our upcoming trip next month, we have a car reserved to pick us up at the airport and take us to the Plaza Hotel, which is downtown. And the price for that, and this is a Sunday afternoon, was about the same amount, maybe even a little bit cheaper than it was last year. So I don't know if it's just pricing or availability of what limos they have, but so I say we got a pretty good deal there. So, taking a limo, that just depends on how much you want to spend on transportation. It is something I would recommend to at least try once, just because it's kind of nice once you're coming into Vegas to be picked up in style and arrive to your destination in style. So, now you've gotten your hotel, but let's say you're staying on the Strip and you want to get yourself to downtown. You want to visit downtown for a few hours, either in the afternoon or the evening, or vice versa. You're staying downtown, you want to go up to the Strip. What's the best way to go in between? And basically, like I said, taking a taxi from downtown to the Strip or vice versa is probably not the way to go. If you're on the Strip, say you're staying at MGM and you want to get over to the Flamingo fairly quickly, cab rate might not be that bad. It might be about the same, a little bit more maybe than a ride share, but that's the only time I would probably take a cab while you're in Vegas. Typically, ride share is going to be your best bet. You can take the bus. There's like what's called the Deuce. It's a double-decker bus, and it'll take you all the way from further south of the end of the Strip by Mandalay Bay, maybe even further south. I think they even have a stop there at the Las Vegas Welcome to Las Vegas sign, and it'll take you all the way up by Fremont Street. It's going to be the cheapest. I think typically an all-day pass might cost $5, $6, $7 maybe. Just know it's going to be the longest way because it's going to stop at every single hotel on your way there. If you're staying on the north end of the Strip, it might not be a bad deal, especially if you're staying at Sahara Strat, because those are the last hotels on the Strip before you get to downtown. So the stops between, say, the Sahara and Fremont Street are going to be fairly few and far between. So that might be when it's good to take it. Unless you're feeling adventurous, I don't think I would take the bus from downtown to the Strip or vice versa at night. Sometimes you can get some shady people on there later in the evening, so you might want to avoid the bus during those times, anytime after maybe 11 o'clock or so till 4 or 5 in the morning. Those buses do operate 24 hours a day, so that is nice. But if you're not really pressed for time and you want to just take in the scenery, even if you want to go from one end of this Strip to the other, that's not a bad deal, I guess, especially if you get an all-day pass. Another way too is you do have the Las Vegas monorail, which starts at MGM Grand and will take you to basically that stops at Bally's, Flamingo, Harrah's. Then it goes kind of off Strip to the Las Vegas Convention Center, which is also next to the Westgate Hotel. Then comes back to the north end of the Strip to the Sahara. Just know that these monorail stations are in the very rear of the hotel, so it can take a while just to get to them. The MGM probably being the biggest one probably takes the farthest walk to get to it. With Sahara and Flamingo aren't too bad, or Harrah's, or you can get there fairly quick. They do charge, I believe it's like $7 per ride per person, but I think they also have all-day passes that kind of like start around 10 or 12. If you play the Vegas slot game on your app, on your Apple, on your cell phone app or on Facebook, if you earn enough points just playing regular casino games, which doesn't cost anything, you can earn enough points. I do believe they still have like free passes available for the monorail that you can use for that as well. Now there's also some free trams, kind of like a mini monorail, they can also use to navigate the Strip. You have one that goes from Mandalay Bay, stops at Luxor, and goes to the Excalibur. Then there's another one that goes from Park MGM to the Crystal Shops, which is by the Cosmopolitan, and then has its final stop at the Bellagio. And another one that runs between the Mirage and Treasure Island. Those are all free. They do, and this is the same thing true of the Vegas monorail. The hours are limited. They don't run 24 hours a day, so you want to kind of check to see. And sometimes their hours varies. It was really weird the last time I was there when they ran, when they didn't. Sometimes they might not start running till 10 a.m. and only run till 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. So they don't run very long, but they are cheap, and it is a fairly quick way to get from one end of the Strip to the other, especially if you're going from the south end of the Strip. Say if you're staying at New York, well, you can just walk next door to Park MGM and then take the free tram over to the Bellagio, and boom, you're right there at the center part of the Strip. So the next question is, should I rent a car while I'm in Vegas? I would say, particularly if you're there the first day or your first time, I would say probably not. Right now, rental cars, due to the pandemic and car shortages, car rates are a lot higher. And if you're staying there for 3 or 4 days, not only are you paying anywhere from $65 to $100 a day, depending on what kind of car you reserve. Plus, you have to keep in mind most of the hotels too will charge for parking. So you have to kind of determine whether or not the cost is even worth it. Like I say, there's a lot more cheaper ways you can get around, especially, specifically if you're staying on the Strip, you're going to have enough places within walking distance, and there are certainly other fairly cheap ways to get around the Strip. Same thing if you're downtown. If you're staying downtown, you're within walking distance of practically everything around downtown. And, unless you want to go to the Strip, then in that case, just take a ride share. Now, one option you could do is if you are wanting to explore outside the touristy areas and take a look at some of the other areas like Summerlin or Red Rock Canyon, or going out to Henderson, or even driving out to Hoover Dam, then maybe what you could do is maybe just rent a car for one day. Most of the hotels there, both downtown and on the Strip, do have their own rental car services there. And so you could just reserve ahead of time and just reserve a car for the day. That way, go drive, do whatever you want to, go shopping, whatever, and then just return the car, you're done, and drop off what you need to, and be about your day. And that way, you're not locked in for a car your whole entire stay. You can just get one for a day and you'll be good. The rates at the hotels are going to be a little bit higher than what you're going to get, say, at the airport, or if you go to even a local, like an Enterprise or a local Hertz or Avis. But then again, to get to those places, you would have to take an Uber or taxi to get to those anyway, so the money you would spend just to get to those places probably wouldn't even be worth it. So it's mainly for a convenience to have those rental car places available at the hotels. Typically, depending on which hotel you're staying at, I know all the MGM properties pretty much use Avis. The Caesars properties that have those often use Hertz, but I've heard some switching over to Enterprise. One thing too, getting back to renting a car at the airport, it's just going to take you a little bit longer, because once you get to the baggage claim, you have to take a shuttle to the special rental car place where all the rental car places are at. So you have to get your luggage, go on a shuttle, takes you over to wherever. It's kind of like, it's by the airport, but it's like a big consolidated center with all the different car companies. Then get there, stand in line, get your car, and then get yourself to there. So I don't think it's a very convenient way, and unless you're there visiting people, like, say, out on the outskirts of town, and you don't plan on even staying on the Strip or downtown, I really wouldn't bother renting a car while you're there in Vegas. Like I said, the only time to do that, if you're already on the Strip, then you just want to rent a car for the day, then yeah, like I said, just rent one from one of the car places at the hotels, rent it for the day, go exploring and then just return it right there at the hotel. And that's probably the only thing I would do as far as renting a car. So that's pretty much it for this video. Next video, one of the more popular questions is, what's the best place to stay in Las Vegas? And we're going to cover that on my next video. So until then, thank you for watching this video. And please like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.